I feel like game critics have a bizarre fascination with Sonic. In personal conversation and in plenty of videos, even those who hardly touch the series or even dislike it, hell, especially those who dislike it, can just go on and on. We're naturally drawn to the character either out of genuine enthusiasm or ironic fascination. It's an engrossing franchise, fluctuating wildly in quality, tone, and priorities over a long span of time. There's a wealth of stuff to dig into: gameplay, story, music, aesthetics, and it's not even just games. Comics, cartoons, anime, films, that amazing OVA. Every element of this franchise has hours of stuff to talk about, and it has been. I've found so many people through their Sonic videos. If I find a new review channel and they have Sonic stuff, it's the first thing I'm watching. It's the yardstick. Sonic is one of the most recognizable video game characters in the world, but is also totally incomprehensible. His characterization changes as the years go by, fittingly non-static, but nowadays always tragically behind the curve. His gameplay evolves, devolves, sidesteps, reinvents, and once in a blue moon, overcomplicates. Failures and successes are treated with equal scrutiny, not just by the people consuming the series, but the creators themselves. Sonic is the only franchise that can make 3 comeback-worthy games in a row and still not have actually turned up yet. Over the years, we see Sonic steadily morphing from Sega creating a character as a response to Mario to existing in constant response to himself. And up against himself, he's a lot less confident. He was designed to be cool, but cool doesn't stick. Meanwhile, Mario's chipper attitude is much less at risk of going out of fashion. I'm being a bit general and I'm trying to pick words that I feel haven't quite been said about Sonic, but it's a certainty that at least some of you have heard similar sentiments elsewhere. Finding totally fresh thoughts about the series is damn near impossible, but the old ones are endlessly fun to repeat. While the game sees Sonic cover a lot of ground in games criticism, it's all well trodden. I realised months after writing this intro that I basically just regurgitated parts of this video.
You know what Mario gets to be? Fun. But when Sonic debuted in '91, he wasn't designed to be fun, he was designed to be cool. And cool doesn't get to be timeless. Sonic is 4 American cartoons, 2 animes, and 2 decade-spanning comic book series, each of which has its own separate canon and continuity, in addition to a quarter-century of video games across 5 console generations.
See the problem? I have a lot of genuine fondness for and a long history with Sonic, and even with the gimmick I have in mind for this project, I'm curious how much truly new I will wind up saying. If I don't mention something, it is possible that I've forgotten, but it may also be because we all know Sonic got the spin dash in 2, and I've got nothing to add by mentioning it. So let's give the game away. This isn't just about Sonic. This is about where he gets us. In this series, we'll be playing Sonic wrong, starting with what Generations dubs the classic era. I'm not going to play every game, but the ones I do will have a gimmick. It'll be part game review, part reflection on how the series has been treated over the years, and mostly topic brought on by how I'm making things worse for myself. And hopefully, you too. Sonic the Hedgehog was the first game I ever played. It was all downhill from here, but that's not such a bad thing. After all, Sonic teaches us that going downhill will often lead to dizzying heights. While I can't deny that it might be nostalgia, this is my favourite of the classic trilogy, and the one I revisit the most. So, now that I've alienated everyone watching, let me say that I understand why this isn't a commonly held opinion. I love Sonic 1 for how rough and experimental it is. And if you've watched this channel for a while, you're probably shaking your head and going, of course that's sodding wise Snake. Despite that, Green Hill Zone perfectly captures the appeal of this new character right out of the gate. It's not just that he's fast, it's that his speed can be used to give the player incredible control over where they want to go. This keeps repeat playthroughs enjoyable as you start better threading a needle through the stage uninterrupted or flinging yourself to greater heights. Moving platforms are convenient, but cleverly using a hill to launch yourself is cooler. The simple act of moving Sonic feels intuitive, but there's a good amount of depth in how you pivot him up, down, and all around, so there's not a dull moment. The stage isn't just an obstacle course, but a toy to play with, something you can make bend to you. Green Hill Zone is so freeing and fun, and it flows so well, and thank God I managed to not say momentum once. Then you get to Marble Zone, and it's a slow labyrinth that tests more traditional platforming chops. Where before you could fling yourself 50 feet that away with reckless abandon, now you have to deftly land on stepping stones above lava and wait on crushers. It tosses away the promise of Green Hill, with only a few scenarios where speed will let you traverse the stage in interesting ways. I realised that whenever I try to defend this stage, it's always, Well, yeah, but you can skip huge chunks of it, which isn't really a winning argument. Sure, you can skip big chunks of Green Hill, but you're really just trading one fun level chunk for another. In Marble, you're walking through a wall to ignore a thing you don't want to do. You don't intuit these shortcuts, you chance upon them. I have no idea how I discovered these. Then Springyard is a physics playground. You'll hit plenty of speed, but only in controlled zones or when you don't want to. Then we have Labyrinth Zone. Oh dear. Trying to be charitable about this stage, it's a skill check, testing that you've learned to navigate quickly by adding pressure. You've had 3 varied zones of platforming, how well did you adapt? This is all undercut by being underwater, so the physics are all different, and as such the controls are different, and the pressure is water pressure. This isn't really testing what you've learned because the physics and obstacles are all different. Starlight and Scrapbrain are pretty much mechanized, hard mode versions of Green Hill and Marble, which bring the environmental theming and gameplay full circle while escalating the challenge. Each stage is figuring out Sonic, and the experiment isn't always a success. I can understand why this isn't as enjoyable for most people, but frankly, I love that about it. Being the first game I played and it feeling like a journey of discovery just sits well with me. And this is weird because I will acknowledge these stages can be boring, but they're all a different kind of bad that somehow just keeps me interested. It's like getting into a comfortable, soggy pair of slippers. Refinement can often lead to more fun, but also less weird stuff, though that's a trade-off I won't begrudge people for preferring. Besides me wanting it to be, that's why this video will be self-indulgent. I can't cover this series in any other way. I'd be lying to myself. I've been in too deep for too long. In 2006, a year that, like Knuckles, was rougher than the rest of them, Sega released Sonic the Hedgehog. Not from captivity. They also released Sonic the Hedgehog, Genesis, an infamously bad GBA port of the Mega Drive original. Smaller screen space, massacred music, fudged frame rate, and fumbled physics. A port made drunk off port. Could the GBA have done better? I don't know, maybe. But this is what came out, and I really like Sonic the Hedgehog. I really like Sonic the Hedgehog. It's so nice we're playing it twice. Sonic and Sonic Genesis. So what are we looking at here? Well, on the left is a Genesis emulator. On the right is a Game Boy Advance emulator. Then we have this here 360 pad. Yeah, this is a Frankenstein's monster of console parts and ports. And my inputs are being sent to both of these. I am playing both at the same time. The goal is to try and navigate both Sonics through the game simultaneously and survive. This is hell. This is a one-to-one demonstration of just how balked Genesis's physics are. The same directional input will send each Sonic massively different lengths. His jump is different, and stage hazards fall out of sync, and that's before either one of them lose a life. It adds a whole new dimension of challenge, as I have to split my attention between 2 screens as they gradually drift further apart. If I find a safe spot as one character, I have to be careful not to move them out of it as I maneuver the other. But due to my own honor rules, I try not to abuse that, because when you've invented a challenge this stupid, there's nothing to do but introduce further stipulations to make it even more unfair, like not muting one of the 2 games. When I end a stage as one character, there's a grace period where I can mad dash with the other to clear their stage. It's a screwball nightmare, and this may be my best creation. I'd really recommend giving this a go, or exploring stupid ways to replay games you love in general. It's a rush, a unique, challenging, infuriating rush. I'm sad to say, this is my best idea. It's all downhill after this, but please remember how that goes. I'll throw in that this is a challenge to the viewer because this is as far as I can get. Beat that! I made it to the 2nd zone. Let's also double back to something I said earlier. Do I just give Sonic 1 a ton of slack because of nostalgia? Maybe, but my nostalgia for this game is really muddy. Want to know something very strange? At least it will be for Americans. Neither of these versions of Sonic are correct to me. They're both wrong. Growing up in a PAL territory, our TVs ran at 720 by 576 resolution with a 50Hz refresh rate. If you lived in an NTSC region like America, you experienced 720 by 480 and 60Hz. Your televisions had a smaller resolution but a faster refresh rate, and as such your Sonic ran faster, as did his music, at least in the first outing. When I was about 11 or so, I used LimeWire to download a pack of several hundred Genesis ROMs. I still have it to this day. It's outlived some of my music libraries, it has a ROM that just displays hentai, and I will be forever shocked that I did not download a virus. The Sonic 1 ROM in here thoroughly overwrote my perception of the game. When I listen to uploads of the 50Hz music, which should be what I know and many other nostalgic Europeans remember, I'm instead thrown for a loop. My old memories have been entirely supplanted by the 60Hz tracks I heard in emulators and Let's Plays. There's something oddly bitter about how I've effectively cut myself off from my own nostalgia when it comes to the first game I ever played. Also, the special stage music in 50Hz makes me feel ill. I do consider myself a nostalgic person, but I'm also someone who doesn't mind letting the past sit. I have so many fond memories of playing the old trilogy with my dad, who, God love him, could never even take on the swinging ball. But remakes and updates generally don't excite me. I want new experiences because I've got my memories, and in the case of Sonic, easy access to a close enough version of the original. I'm not a purist, I'm easily pleased. This weird, sort of warped and melancholic nostalgia does sadden me, but nowhere near as much as Sega's own piggybacking off of it. In recent years, decades, Sonic swings violently between novelty and pandering pretty gracelessly. I love Generations, as a game anyway. The fan service is painful, but I appreciated it at the time because I thought it meant it would have to stop playing to nostalgia. I mean, it would be shameless to keep doing it after such a big blowout. But Green Hill got paraded out again and again thereafter, and I find it sort of pitiable. I like Green Hill, but it's a fucking Green Hill. It's not that spectacular outside of stellar level design. The thing that only Mania recaptured and the rest forgot. Instead, these recreations target the aesthetic, which is also strange because Sonic 1 had a more muted, naturalistic colour palette, one which I actually prefer over 2 and 3's more colourful visuals. I know, I didn't really turn into this person, I was this bad from the start. I'm going to say, as the person whose nostalgia is buggered beyond belief, that playing on nostalgia as hard and as often as the series does only serves to undermine itself, not only showing signs of stagnation, but also tainting fond memories. Lastly, before we move on, I want to quickly address the title of this video. Yes, I am being clickbaity. Playing Sonic weird is more accurate, but sounds weird. Playing Sonic in strange ways to contrive discussion, which may not actually be about Sonic. Look, I'm not a marketing guy, but I can see that not playing terribly well, even if it's far more accurate. It's funny as well, I can see people thinking this is like one of those can you beat X doing Y videos and being disappointed. Meanwhile, people who want an essay about Sonic aren't going to be pulled to the video. I'm pleasing nobody here. I'm making a video wrong. I even missed an anniversary year because I put this off to play Narc. Anyway, playing 2 games at the same time can get a little weird, but Sonic Team was operating in 2s. After Sonic 1, there was a split. One team remained in Japan to make Sonic CD, while another went stateside to make 2. 2 came out earlier, but CD had time travel, so we're doing that first. I've been on the internet for a long time, and CD's image used to be very different. This was, at one point, the greatest game no one played. The CD may as well have stood for critical darling. Seemingly everyone who played it praised it. But having only seen release on the Sega CD and years later the PC, it wasn't easily accessible for quite some time. While it did see releases on some classic compilations, it was only with the 2011 Christian Whitehead port that a lot of people got their hands on CD. And this was a good port. It fixed physics bugs, tightened up its awkward spin dash, rolled in both soundtracks, added tails, and now everyone can play it. And, things changed. It's not like everyone hates it now. Opinion on every Sonic game is divisive at best, but it doesn't enjoy quite as singular and lofty a reputation. That could just be that the net got bigger so more opinions came into the mix. Or maybe it's that people actually got their hands on it. What's funny is, I had CD on PC and later the Gems collection, and I thought that I didn't get it. Since I wasn't seeing this apparent greatness, I must be wrong about something. I kinda miss being naively susceptible to consensus, because I've long since realised I just really hate playing CD. Man, we're burning a lot of goodwill today. I'm not even done yet. My 2 main problems with it are the levels and what you do in them. I guess that means my problem with this game is everything. The gimmick here is that you play as 3 Sonics. You've got Sonic, Ponic, and Phonic. To swap between them, you have to hit these signs, then maintain a high speed for several seconds to switch over, going into Ponic's past and Phonic's future. To complement this feature, I guess, stages are laid out in a sort of puzzle-like fashion. Clean runways, launches, and loops are there. You also lose your ability to make the jump if you get stopped early, so you have to scout the stage for an optimal point to time travel, whether that's a route you think you can run uninterrupted, or a stage gimmick to exploit. It's clever, it builds on the speed focus of the previous game and encourages really paying attention to the levels to find useful spots. Different times also open up different routes and modify stage hazards. It adds an immediate, tangible payoff to playing a section skillfully or finding a sweet spot and... I'm labyrinth zoning again, I'm being charitable. The levels are more knotted up than dodgy fan art. Disorganized clusters of gimmicks with very little flow or structure. They're not fun to navigate naturally, let alone under pressure. I don't engage with time travel as a fun thing, but a frustrating and precarious experience, which, I guess that makes sense. Putting that aside, why are we time traveling? Well, it's to travel to the past and hunt down a robot generator, which gets you good futures for Phonic, and if done in every stage, a good ending. I'm not a fan of this. These stages are too chaotic. Scrubbing them to find a way to the past, then tracking down a robot generator on top of that isn't really rewarding or cohesive. It's Where's Waldo played through a kaleidoscope. I guess what I'm saying in all this is that Sonic had a rough transition to 4D. And since we won't be covering it in full, let's just have an aside to point out that 3D Blast is dull for similar reasons. It's hide and seek all game long, without the pleasing locales to at least make it nice to look at. I mean, yeah, this game is graphically impressive, but it's not pleasing. I can find the flickies, but I can't find the fun. Plus, it may have contributed to lifelong problems with isometric gameplay. Now, unlike 3D Blast, the hunt in CD is entirely optional. You don't need a good ending to have a good time. But there is another way. Grabbing 50 rings and carrying them to the end of the level lets you into the bonus stages, same as Sonic 1. This is better. The special zones are visually impressive, but it's about gauging depth in a fake 3D space with annoying UFOs. Funnily enough, I liked this more before modern releases fixed the frame rate. The slowdown helped, which is what you want in a Sonic game. Get all the time stones and you'll get the good ending. And appropriately enough, you'll do it faster. But it's not as if the stages get better just because you're trying to beeline through them. Stages in the other games are like obstacle courses. Stages in CD are like theme parks. Most of the attractions are off to the side. They're opt-in, except for Wacky Workbench, which also happens to be the worst stage in the game. If you go to a theme park, realize all the rides are crap and decide to leave, is walking to the exit fun? Maybe it is when your robot clone appears and tries to race you there. Stages also don't feel as mechanically distinct. Sure, each has unique navigational gimmicks, but the structure of each is far more repetitive. They're boxy, cramped, and bumpy. Is there anything I like about CD? Well, the animations are cool, and I like Metal Sonic, Sonic's first video game rival, and though simple, he is pretty much perfect. Sonic is defined by nature and free will, so a robot copy of him driven by his programming is an easy slam dunk. The nature versus technology imagery of Sonic 1 is more fully realised here as not an absolute struggle, but a battle for integration, as good futures show harmony between the two. The game also introduces Amy, and not even Sonic cares. I also forgot the Super Peel Out exists. I don't get the love, sorry. Oh wait, yeah, there is something I love about CD. This game has amazing music. So, let's hear it. Oh yeah! Since we had two soundtracks playing last time, we're having none here. What I'm doing is genuinely making the game worse for myself. This game has two OSTs and they're great, in size and quality. Each era of every stage has different music, meaning 4 tracks per zone, 2 intro tracks and boss music. Cosmic Eternity, it's all good. And without the music, the game is just so much worse. So much of the atmosphere is lost. The places and events lose so much of their character. And without musical backing, the sound effects become uncomfortable disturbances of the piece. Shut up, Sonic.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, I can't blame you. So, cards on the table, this section is coming from a very petty place. Without naming anyone involved, I used to be in the public Discord for a pretty big gaming YouTuber. I left because I hadn't become a speed reader yet, and there are less painful methods of learning. I prefer something smaller and more personal. Anyway, a discussion broke out about whether graphics and, more to the point, sound matter in games. And one person was hardline, almost to the point of parody, that they absolutely did not, stating that a game like Mario would be just as good even if it had no sound and was all just grey blocks, because the mechanics would still be rock solid. You know, I'm sure they'd look rock solid. When I said... My two main problems with it are the levels and what you do in them. I guess that means my problem with this game is everything. That was obviously nonsense. There's more to games than pure interactivity. Now, gameplay purists are very rarely this strict. The phrase "only gameplay matters" usually does have the unspoken caveat that things which directly support gameplay count. What they mean is they don't care about story. This person was a mechanical purist. Only mechanics matter. And on that, they were removable. The argument just went in circles. What's funny is that this person was, and probably still is, a pretty respected writer among essayists. They're not someone you're likely to know if you just consume stuff like this casually, but people who make videos occasionally cite and use their... hypotheses? Conjecture. I don't buy into their stuff. My idea of what games can be doesn't quite line up with their idea of what games should be. I've wanted to talk about that argument for years, even though I really didn't contribute beyond making stupid jokes because I found the whole thing silly and didn't want to take part. Now here I am, years later, rebutting it without telling or remembering half the people involved, like a real hero. So, let's just point out a few examples of why sound obviously matters. Phoenix Wright would lose much of its trials, tribulations, and triumphs without musical feedback to let the player know the stakes and feel smart for overcoming them. Sound functions as a reward. To bring it back to CD, yeah, beating a stage loses something without a jingle to announce how cool you are. I don't care if it's just a noise, it makes me feel like I did something. Good sound effects on weapons and attacks directly contribute to player confidence. It has been shown that two guns, even if they have the exact same stats, will still differ in efficacy dependent on what feedback it gives the player. Sound functions as feedback. More than that, it can overpower mechanics. And well, let's actually tie all this together. We literally react to audio stimuli faster than visuals. People get annoyed by what I say far sooner than what I put up on screen, and feedback from both sound and visuals is obviously important for understanding interactivity. Besides making CD less pleasurable to experience generally, disabling the music removes the invulnerability and speed-up jingles. This makes their lengths harder to gauge, and as such, they feel awkward. These items are meant to give you a burst of confidence, and that confidence is deeply rooted in their music. Gameplay isn't just built on mechanics. Visuals and sound make them understandable. CD isn't even particularly audio-focused, but playing it in relative silence takes away from the experience far more than you might expect, and it's something you only really notice when it's gone. So, yeah, I don't like CD, but I love its look and sound. With rare exception, even bad Sonic games will produce a few bangers. Okay, let's move on. We don't want to leave Sonic waiting. Wait, where is he? Well, we're just gonna go ahead without him. This game was actually Tails' introduction to the series, so let's take him for a spin. Again. Let's open by addressing a common criticism, one that's been largely discredited, but I want my turn. Hold right to win. Now, this started around the mid-2000s with the Advance series, particularly Advance 2. What happened was Advance 1 got flack for not being fast enough, even though it was a pretty faithful send-up to the older games. Just one that accounted for a smaller screen. Regardless, developer Dimps took these somewhat uninformed criticism to heart, and decided Advance 2 had to be fast. So, a boring straight line in the form of a game came out, and people started decrying it as hold right to win. Which, isolated to this one game, is fine if reductive. I'm not about to knock the concept of a soundbite, I just called it a straight line. But then, people who definitely haven't played the games and just wanted to regurgitate opinions acted as if this applied to the whole series, and then that became the truth of the matter. It's all these crossed wires of bullshit, resulting in a game pretty unlike its predecessors, unintentionally tainting the lot of them. It's funny as well, because this game also featured the origin of the boost. Then during the later 3D boost era, we got the equally shallow hold boost to win. I'm not blaming Advance 2 for that, the boost wasn't that major in it. It's just interesting how these things play out. That's the fun thing about secondhand opinions. When they become so detached from their actual source, they become very easily disproven while still making everything harder and more annoying to talk about. How many videos, this one included, have been held back and slowed down by having to address these things? I guess the solution, and this goes for this video too, is to not just mindlessly spew the opinions of others as ammunition for something you have nothing to say about, but feel a need to be in the conversation of. I hope these videos will entertain and supplement your own thoughts and ideas, not act as a shortcut to having them. That's assuming you're not just out there doing a little trolling and, hey, who can stop you? This is for the people acting in earnest. Anyway, I made certain Sonic 2 isn't hold right to win. In Sega's 758th Old Games compilation, Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classics, you can play a selection of games from the console in a recreation of a child's bedroom. Despite the nostalgia baiting, they have been nice enough to roll in some of the options which emulators provide. There's a plethora of ways to make the games incredibly ugly. There's save states, and best of all, a mirror mode to flip the games around. Unlike the absolute moment-to-moment chaos of Sonic and Genesis, this is like a creeping uncertainty. Areas I'd confidently charge through and get hit become disorienting treks into the unknown that I'd creep through and get hit. Whenever I lost my bearings, I'd be almost instinctually pulled to the right. Maybe they were, right. I'm not just playing the game, I'm playing myself. I'm playing against my memories. This simple change turned them against me. So, if you feel that games are lacking in uncertainty, you just have to go and create some. I was still very much able to shove my way through. The Sonic series is incredibly forgiving as far as difficulty goes. If you've got one ring, you'll survive most every threat intact. The real punishment for taking a hit isn't death, it's the loss of speed, and well, going left had already taken a toll on that, but made me no less likely to get twatted. How do I find Sonic 2? Well, it's a good game that I find really boring. Yeah, that sentence is me hedgehogging my bets. Every revisit, I start up and I'm having a great time until about here. Mystic Caves wakes me back up a bit, and then it's nothing but yawners. Funnily enough, despite it being by far the better game, my problems with 2 come from the same place as CD, but they run in the other direction. It's a better one for sure. 2 adapted the principles of Green Hill game-wide to good effect. Stages had more straightaways, fast sections, and more often gave players opportunities to leverage speed and quick reflexes to get where they want to go. Staying on the fast path is a reward in itself, since maintaining that position without slowing down is a show of mastery. If there's a platforming section you don't like, there is likely a satisfying way to bypass it. But the platforming itself still doesn't feel like a punishment, which is a hell of a feat, making fun sections feel gratifying to skip. This is best shown in Aquatic Ruin, where if you're good at the game, that won't happen. By maintaining the upper route, you can stay high and dry pretty much throughout. Oh, there you are, you lazy bugger. See you next game. But yeah, as I get into the second half of Sonic 2, I'm just done with it. The stages are undeniably distinct, and while this is far from hold left to win, I get a little burnt out. That's where CD and 2 create the same problem for me. They are two extremes. CD is extreme clutter, while 2 is extreme smoothing. Level ideas pounded into a greenish, hillish mold. It gets repetitive, but that repetition does remain enjoyable for a time. While I only revisited CD for this video, I will at least replay Sonic 2 from time to time for its own sake. But by about Oil Ocean Zone, I'm not having any fracking fun, so I tap out. Now, I cracked a joke about just how many compilations Sega has made, but I want to be clear. I think it's great that they make their older games accessible easily and legally, without artificial scarcity or time limiting to force the customer's hand. I mean, I can't really knock Nintendo. I'd want to hide the fact that Sunshine is bad from as many people as I could too. And while I think the shell program I'm using to play Sonic 2 is worse than many free emulators with its clunky UI, unreliable button mapping, and occasional slowdown, it is still heads and shoulders above the competition, with its ease of use and charming presentation. It even has workshop integration, though it is a bit cumbersome. And hey, you bought the ROMs, you can take them elsewhere, they're on your computer. Anyway, what I want to talk about is save stating, and that brings me to the special stages. Beat 7 of them, get 7 Chaos Emeralds, get the good ending. Everyone goes on about how much they hate the half-pipes, and I'm not going to avert expectations. When I started tackling them for the video, I managed to knock the first few out without needing to quick load, and I was actually thinking, hey, these aren't that bad. Not that I was brave enough to not drop a save first. While it's hard to see what's coming, each section follows a pattern that you can pick up within the first 2 sets of rings you'll see. The rest is just following it. Then it starts spinning you in circles and arbitrarily breaking pattern, and you remember, oh yeah, this is total shite. So, confession time. I have never gotten all of the emeralds without abusing save states. Never done it. As I alluded to during Sonic 1, my memories of these games have been overwritten by American copies, but that also means I've spent far longer with these games on an emulator than their actual hardware. I was born in 1993. I didn't play a video game until I was 4. It wasn't long before I went from the Mega Drive to a console that could save and load. I first played Sonic 3 on PC. Point is, the ability to save and load is something I take for granted, and I didn't really question the use of going back to games where that functionality wasn't actually part of the experience, but rolled in by emulators. Nowadays, I try not to abuse save states in games that don't have a save feature, but these tunnels do not get that respect. It's funny as well, I think I play better in these knowing I have that safety net. With less pressure to get it right in one go, with no risk of wasting a checkpoint, I can just focus purely on the task at hand, but they also take away from what was the genuine experience. The work, care, and planning it takes to access the special stages, alongside the limited number of opportunities, does admittedly make them more special. These factors add to the tension and value of being there, and they make the reward more rewarding. Save states take away from that. And well, Sonic 1 and 2 were not made with saving in mind. The lack of saves wasn't entirely a flaw, it was accounted for in their design, a short a singular runtime carried by a focus on replayability and mastery. Saving changed games in many ways, and key here is that it changes the stakes, but besides that, it changed what's rewarding, and allowed games to be longer. The ability to save is taken for granted nowadays, but its presence isn't actually an out-and-out good or bad. No feature is. Not even something I think many would balk at were it absent. And well, back to the reward, I actually prefer the normal ending. In the good ending, Miles flies out to help Sonic and he's like, nah, I'm golden, foreshadowing how Miles will be treated down the line. But if you don't go and get all the emeralds, Sonic is screwed without him, which I think is a better way to cap off his debut, coming in for the save right at the tail's end. But, and this is cool, if you get all 7 of the emeralds, you can... Oh yeah, they don't work with Miles. Well, isn't that super? So, let's play a game with Knuckles the Echidna? A game with Knuckles the Echidna in it. Sorry about that. This video had a rough transition to free. D-Blast. Director's cut. I actually don't have much to say about the game itself. I suppose I was always a little weirded out by how the floor is a grid. I figured checkerboard patterns were just something on some of the walls in Sonic's world. Having the view pulled up and seeing that it makes up much of the ground turns this into a planet of eye strain. It's no wonder Sonic's always running fast. He's trying to blur it into something better to look at. Not that there's much speed to be had here. This is a game of finding the enemy, lining yourself up like you're playing Sonic Snooker, and then popping them to grab their flicky, which you then have to deposit to clear. This is not a fun gameplay loop. You have to engage with the combat, but you're a shed on ice skates. Yet, each and every moment of platforming makes this preferable. 3D Blast does at least have an interesting musical legacy. The Genesis version is the first time Jun Senu composed for a Sonic game, and the Saturn version is the same for Richard Jocks. Music from this game would go on to feature surprisingly often in later games, particularly Sonic Adventure, and my favourite track from it, Diamond Dust Zone Act 1, got completely fucked for Sonic Chronicles. But then, what didn't get fucked for Chronicles? Now, while I will stand by saying that this game is God's gift to Insomniacs, I have a lot of respect for John Burton. Burton was the lead programmer on 3D Blast, and in 2017, he decided to tune up his 21-year-old game, creating Director's Cut. He made UI and camera enhancements, rebalanced the power-ups, added a fully featured level select, a debug tool, and a time attack mode. He changed how emeralds were gathered and even implemented Supersonic on top of that, documenting a lot of his process on his YouTube channel, which I'll link below. It's not just 3D Blast, he goes into a lot of the really cool trickery he pulled on older consoles to get cutscenes and impossible graphics to work. I still don't like 3D Blast, but I do deeply admire John's work, and compared to me, he's a super genius. But I suppose my question with all of this is, when are games done? I don't mean companies shutting down games, we've got Ross to ask that. I mean, are they ever finished? Patching wasn't really a thing when Blast came out. Recalling games was, but I'm sure John ran into issues with that. So here I am, applying a patch to a Genesis game. Now, this isn't an issue for most people, but I'm asking as someone who covers games. Are all reviews of 3D Blast made before 2017 obsolete now? Are people who review the game today not knowing Director's Cut exists making a mistake? If someone criticizes the game for, say, not guiding you to lost flickies, are they at fault?
In a perfect world, there would have been a flicky radar or minimap to show you the location of any flickies you lost, as well as making...
I don't think there's a correct answer to that. After all, if anyone else made this would just be a hack, not a patch. I, and I imagine most other people covering games, try to cover them in their best form, or otherwise, the form in which most people can reasonably be expected to experience them, this bizarro video notwithstanding. It stands to reason that you want your game review to be as true to the intended experience as possible, so it stands up to the most scrutiny. I've fumbled that before. I played Dead Rising 4 on very low settings to keep my recording frame rate up on an aging PC. I got a few hundred comments about that in the last week. It was a massive oversight on my end, but here's the thing. I had bigger problems with Dead Rising 4. The fact that 3D Blast's intro has a higher resolution than those shadows did not factor into my experience at all. Turning those up would not have made me want to fillet Frank under soft lighting. But I should have realized that, yeah, people were going to latch onto that and at least acknowledged it. It's why most of the time we don't have mods installed in the games we cover, and if we do, we mention how they impact the experience. But we can't fight patches. Not anymore. Look at my Dying Light video. This was a weird Sonic game. Outside of what I said about story, that thing is completely antiquated by years of patches providing optimization alongside gameplay additions and rebalances. My Shovel Knight video steadily got less and less comprehensive, as did Seum. It's why I generally don't cover early access games with rare exception. I want the videos I make to have staying power, but Director's Cut shows just how fickle everything I make might be. Who's to say that tomorrow we won't see Return to Paradise City? I'd actually love to see that. This isn't even accounting for things like difficulty selection or port differences. Shout out to a smaller channel, Webster, whose Sonic videos alongside feature breakdowns also incorporate port differences which make for some fascinating comparisons. Give him a watch, even though I'm sure he gave up on this video at the Sonic 2 section. Now, I promise, I'm not having some review-based existential breakdown. I find tugging at this thread more amusing than worrying because, at the end of the day, I don't actually think it matters that much. It's something I enjoy considering because it helps me figure out how I want to make videos. And as problems go, games being able to be patched is a net good. My opinion being at risk of being outdated doesn't put a dent in that. I don't even think I played this one wrong, this was just the outright better option. When people are choosing their favourite Sonic game, it often seems to be a toss-up between Sonic 2 and 3 and K. And while I obviously don't share the love for 2, 3 and K, I feel, just deserves all the praise it gets. It's not my favourite of the classic series, but it is the best. The levels each feel distinct to play with barely a loser amongst them. Speed and exploration feed into each other since going fast lets you better get around the stage and it's actually worthwhile to look around. Special stages are no longer accessed by carrying 50 rings to a drop point, which encourages caution, but by finding big rings that are free to enter. So the player is less weighed down by their surplus and are free to keep up the speed since it will often get them onto routes with big rings. Gathering emeralds retains challenge but now isn't a total pain in the arse, and thanks to the addition of saves, you won't get blue-balled when you shut the game off. There's also a story and even cutscenes. They're quick, to the point and unobtrusive, but still characterful, told entirely through imagery and gestures. and in certain cases this even changes the look of zones in between stages and introduces new gimmicks. It all goes a long way to making this feel like a genuine trek across Angel Island, and on top of that there's a greater cohesion between zones that prior games lacked, which doesn't get in the way of how imaginative they are. Knuckles is a great rival to Sonic, though I don't actually think this comes through until Adventure. Here he just chuckles and sneaks about levels, always one step ahead. I like how later entries contrast Sonic's cool street smarts with Knuckles' stoic gullibility. He's also strong. Not to mention, all three characters play differently and more or less behave like a difficulty select. Tails gains flight, Sonic's movement abilities change with elemental shields, and Knuckles has alternative routes through levels, and all of them have super forms. Yeah, this game is stacked. Literally. It came out in two halves, but using lock-on technology, the game became whole, and the future of games was changed forever. Well, not by lock-on tech, no one else used it, but the future of games did change. What you're looking at isn't some bizarro CG camcorder LP. Late last year I streamed through Sonic 3 and Knuckles using MUVR, which places you, once again, into a kid's bedroom with access to whatever classic games you've plugged into across an array of platforms. It's an amazing bit of kit, and it might be the way we'll preserve light gun games as CRTs in circulation are donated to Smash players in need of a beating. But it also has a wonderfully ironic nostalgia angle to it. We're using such powerful tech to escape to the past. It even has optional features to hear sounds about the house, like your mum calling out to you. And okay, I know that's fun, but I actually kind of find that a little melancholic. Why did I do this? Well, it seemed like a fun idea for a stream, but to suck the fun out of it, it was also because I was really amused by the absurdity of taking a relatively primitive game, albeit one with an, at the time, innovative hardware gimmick, and putting it into such a detached, futuristic scenario, an incredible merging of past and what is now present. Yeah, this dumb stream that some of you enjoyed, it was actually incredibly pretentious. There's a wonderful video in the Infinite Review series covering Neon Genesis Evangelion, which, besides the show itself, talks at length about how the ways we've consumed media and our relation to it has changed as mass media has advanced. I can't recommend Infinite Review enough, and it was this video which sparked this idea.
There was a time when I would watch something and it was just me and that something. Now it feels more like being alone in a cinema, but each seat has the spectre of another viewer in it. What do they think of it? Will they think badly of me if I say I like it or hate it? How honest should I be? How open should I be about my feelings? Do they even want to hear them?
I can't envision a single developer of 3NK ever imagining their game would be in such a scenario, played in a virtual simulation of the time in which it came out, then broadcast worldwide for anyone to join in and watch, even commentate. I peek off to the side and whatever illusion there was gets shattered by people asking me to turn the TV upside down. Playing a game live on stream can be in some ways just as disorienting as playing two games, or playing it backwards, or not hearing the music. You're engaging chat, talking to friends, checking volume levels, trying to be entertaining, generally put on a good show, and the game ceases to be a game. It's a performance. Though, it's funny, I was always sort of playing games with others watching. When I was growing up, I'd have friends over most days. We'd play multiplayer stuff or hand over when playing single-player games. It was always social, shooting the shit and riffing on whatever it was that we were playing. I'd always, in a sense, had an audience when playing games. I'd record police chases in Vice City and Jack 2 to VHS, I'm not sure what the plan was, but I enjoyed doing it. When YouTube came along, I watched LPs and wondered how would I muck in for years. I'd always wanted to capture and share my experiences with games. I just found out once I started that I enjoyed the edited format more than a live one. I wanted to crack jokes, tell stories, and dig into games. The live format is fun, but I found it less intriguing, more stressful. I preferred the time and control editing gave me. I enjoyed being able to compress an experience down to what I feel are its core elements. It's also very different chatting with a friend in the room versus streamed to an audience of strangers, even though I had friends on call to shoot the shit with. Now, I wasn't trying to recapture the childhood experience, but it is funny how that became something of a running gag of the stream, that everyone was clustered in the room watching me bumble my way through a game. It also became clear that I'm a gambling addict. I had a lot of fun, but I actually have a very mixed relationship with streaming. I like to entertain people, and streaming gives you instant feedback, but I get very stressed with it. Whenever I watch streams from people I enjoy, they always seem very natural, easygoing and laid back, which I think I failed to capture. I go into every stream thinking, I've got to be on top of everything, put on an entertaining show, play very well, respond to everyone chatting. I then develop tunnel vision, miss easy cues either in conversation or gameplay. I was miles from getting every emerald during the stream's run, but hey, I was playing as Sonic. Then afterwards, I worry that people think I'm always so scatterbrained. Look, I'll destroy my own credibility, this video is proof enough of that, but I prefer to know that I'm doing it ahead of time. I like YouTube for that. And because I get the time to read comments and choose whether to respond. Even with a small audience, it's an inevitability that I'll miss conversation and questions, so I check chat constantly, hoping people don't feel ignored. Then, because I can't settle my own attention, I play worse and it just bounces back and forth. I'm not sure whether I should feel sort of fake afterwards. So, having saved the worst plug for myself, if you want to see Streamer Brain in action, please come along sometime. I do actually have a fair amount of respect for people who do streaming as a career, even the ones I don't. I couldn't do that day in and day out, I'd go mental. I like that with YouTube stuff, I can release a video and step away for a while. I like that these videos make me look clever, as I spend minutes at a time staring at a script trying to think up some daft wordplay, going back several pages to insert a call forward to a joke that comes later, removing a redundancy or two, rewatch footage to see if an assumption I remade earlier was false and how to amend it. Editing gives me the luxury of second-guessing myself. You know how many dumb thoughts I have to work through on the way to a finished video? On a stream, I say something stupid and that's that. I think the solution is I have to learn to calm down during them. Well, we'll see. I suppose the point in all of this noise is, I don't feel like I actually played Sonic 3 and Knuckles in any of this. I was left with a bigger impression of the experience of the stream than the experience of the game. If this was my first exposure to Sonic 3, I would not be able to break it down properly since there was just too much going on. Games need time and rumination to be properly understood, and even this relatively simple one got drowned out. Streaming is a complication. Games were not meant to be played and consumed this way. I'm not saying it's wrong and it should stop. If you enjoy streams, go on ahead. I enjoy a few here and there as well. It's just that the Hawthorne effect is real, and it does affect things. There are streamers I don't enjoy, and well, generally people on the internet, who treat opinions as a race. It's no wonder people are looking for shortcuts. But if you're live and broadcasting to people, there is for many a need to feel like they're saying something, even if it's just the first thing to come to mind, because that's how you win the race. But that's also how you wind up saying something half-baked. Now, this does all bring me to something else. The way I play games has changed outside of this. I have to ask myself with everything I boot up, is this going to be a video? Though usually I'll slip into analysing whatever it is I'm playing regardless, it's a natural state of being for me. This isn't a mope. I'm fine with it since I am still having fun, I still find games fun to play, but it's impossible to deny that the way I play games and my state of mind playing them has changed. I get a lot of comments from people hoping that I'm taking breaks and not burning myself out. I've griped a lot about internet comments this video, so let me end off this first part by saying thank you. Thank you genuinely. I do appreciate the concern. I know not every content creator, and I hate that term, but not every person who puts videos on the internet has the luxury of an audience that will say, please take a break if you need it. But you don't have to worry about me. I am at my most relaxed doing this. I was actually more stressed a few years back when I was fighting to not always be switched on, as it were. I thought I was robbing myself of the ability to shut off, to just let a game be a game. It was when I accepted that this is just how I operate now that I could actually relax with them again. We all experience games differently. Trying to arbitrarily divide how I should think about one or another just introduced undue stress into the equation. And deciding to not worry about whether I'm switched on or not actually just let me flitter between the two much more easily. If you play games for the internet, your relationship with them is going to change. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. The changing state of the world and technology and access to media and your amount of free time, it's going to change it anyway. Just play games the way you enjoy, that's comfortable for you. Do think about it. Do think about how you consume games. Think about it as little or as much as you like. But don't let whatever conclusion you draw be a hardline stance. Things only snap when they're rigid. And when I'm in the mood for one, I'll do a stream. even if I'm exposing my ass from time to time as I die over and over again to a single jump. I got there in the end, and we saved Angel Island. Sort of. So, that brings us to the end of the classic era, and by now, I hope you're getting an idea of what this series is going to be. It's really only about the games 1/3 of the time. Sonic is just a vehicle for topics I want to talk about, and I won't always have conclusions, but hopefully there's some stuff there to chew on. Some of these are topics I've been muddling with for years and will likely continue to do so on my own, turning them over in my head and re-examining them as I learn more. And since we didn't hit every game that came out around this time, let's do a quick roundup. I didn't touch on the 8-bit games since I didn't have them as a kid, but I did play them for this video, and you know what? They're fun. I was sort of surprised by how different they felt. I loved the music in Bridge and Jungle Zones, and for whatever reason was really enamored with Jungle's faux 3D. These games also have a stricter platforming focus since the physics had to be pared down. And lastly, I loved Sonic 1 having a map of South Island between stages charting the journey. It actually blew my mind a little. I kinda wish this was in the Mega Drive version. Apparently the Master System games did well in Europe since it sold better over here. Nintendo lost to Sega in the UK. Mean Bean Machine! I can't wrap my head around Puyo. I'm a Tetris guy. Tails actually got a couple of spin-offs, one of which is a bloody Metroidvania. I'm not big on Metroidvanias, but I'd love a 16-bit Metroidvania-style Sonic game with the physics intact. I wonder if there's a ROM hack for that. Sonic Labyrinth. It's kinda like an 8-bit 3D Blast, and Robotnik tricks Sonic into putting on speed-down boots. I maybe could have used this game to talk about regional differences in lore. Sonic Drift 1 and 2. Never played them, didn't even touch them for this video. But I did play Sonic R. I mean, I'm not going to blow your mind by mentioning that it's a bad game with a great soundtrack. I do respect that they made a racing game where the main character is often known as the fastest thing alive, and as such he is absurdly OP. It's like the game is asking, yeah, what did you expect? So that's the classic era. I may have sounded pretty negative, but I think 3D Blast aside, there's plenty of reason people enjoy each of these games. I talked about how Sonic 1 feels like a game figuring out a character, but honestly, it never stops feeling like that. With the same base gameplay, they all bring something different to the table, changing the format and level design. And this trend continues right up until today. Sonic cannot stop changing. And for now, that's a strength. We've already touched on how that's not always going to be the case. I acknowledge that my opinions are something of an outlier, so I'll say it again. I am never contrarian for the sake of it, at least in these videos. I'm just expressing myself honestly. This video was about trying to find new thoughts. I may have repeated a lot of old ones, but that was the drive. So why would I hold back dissenting opinions that I do have? Anyway, I hope you had fun, I hope there's something in this video for you to take away, and I hope my indulgences haven't bored you to tears. This video was originally intended to be a full Sonic retrospective, but I realised there's a lot of games, so we'll move the adventure era into another day. Next up, we're actually going further into the past, with Yakuza 0. If you want to support these videos, please spread this one around. If you want to support me more directly, I have a Ko-Fi and a Patreon. Patrons are scrolling by now. Everyone gets credited. At $3 you get access to scripts and notes, though this video doesn't have notes. And at $5, access to bonus afterthought videos where I answer questions people in the bracket ask and dig into anything that didn't quite make it into the video. So yeah, I'll see you in Kamurocho, with the game that may well have saved Yakuza in the West.